time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going now.
Welcome back to PowersPowWow. Peace always. Today I will be speaking with Bruce Burt, a bagpipe player, a teacher. Hello, Bruce.
Hello.
Glad you came out.
Yep, I'm glad to be been invited here.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name's Bruce Burt. I'm a bagpiper, lifelong bagpiper. I've been started when I was about 8 years old. My dad taught me. He was a piper also. Grandfather was not a bagpiper, but my great-grandfather was a bagpiper, and it goes down from Scotland for generations of bagpipers. Currently I live in Farmington Hills, Michigan with my wife and my daughter, and I work for a property management company not that far from here in Sylvan Lake called Waldman Management, an apartment management company. I've been there for over 20 years.
Oh, it keeps you busy too. I know you got to take care of the apartments when the
Oh
floods
yeah. I'm our field supervisor, so I'm responsible for all of our buildings, which currently we have 13 buildings, plus one commercial building.
You get some crazy calls then, huh?
Oh yeah, over the years I've seen seen basically everything from floods to fires to tenants attempted murder and everything else. Yeah, so you never know what the next day is going to bring you.
Yeah, okay. So you've been in some world competitions.
Yeah, I've done a lot of competing. I've done solo competing. Played with several pipe bands over the years. I did make it to Scotland to compete in the World's Championship Pipe Band Competition in August, and that was quite some time ago now. That was in '96. And I played with a top band in Ontario called the St. Thomas Police Pipe Band, which are no longer in existence. But no, that was a good experience. That's the only time I ever went over to Scotland, got to meet some family over there, some aunts, uncles, great aunts, uncles. I got to spend a little bit of time there looking at the country, so it was a very nice trip.
Oh, excellent. So you have the Highland Games are coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, we
in Livonia, right?
Yeah, there's Livonia Games, which I don't think we're actually going to this year. We're going. There's our band is competing. It's the North American Championship. It's in Maxville, Ontario, which is up towards Montreal, and our band is planning on going to that. And it's considered the biggest contest this side of Scotland. It's the North American Championship. It's the biggest games in Ontario and biggest games in North America. You'll get bands from, occasionally you used to get bands from Scotland quite often, but not so much anymore. But yeah, you'll get West Coast bands, you'll get bands from down Texas, Florida, a lot of East Coast bands, Nova Scotia, so they come from all over.
Wow. Want to talk a little bit about your grandfather?
Sure. My grandfather from Forth, Scotland, he was a coal miner. I think he came over here when he was in his 20s. I think most Scottish immigrants came into Ontario first through Montreal and traveled down. He came down to Detroit, like so many others, to work in the auto industry. He got a job with Ford Motor Company. I believe he came here down in the, must have been the late 20s. And not far after that, my great-grandfather came over here, who was a piper, and he started playing with a pipe band. It was a Ford Motor Company. They sponsored a pipe band. All the auto industry sponsored pipe bands back then. It was the Ford Motor Company pipe band, which eventually became the longest standing band now in the Detroit area, which is St. Andrews Band of Detroit. Supported by the St. Andrews Society, a Scottish society. And there's also been the Chrysler pipe band, which my dad was a member of the Chrysler pipe band that dissolved back in the, I think the late 60s, not long after I was born. And there's a really interesting story with that. The end of the Chrysler pipe band sponsorship, they were doing a big competition somewhere in Ohio. Chrysler loaned them 6 station wagons to drive down there and compete. And whatever happened, they wrecked every single one of them. So that was the end of the Chrysler pipe band, and I think it's the last time auto industry sponsored a pipe band.
There was no scotch involved, right?
There was something involved, I'm sure.
So can you tell us a little bit how the pipes work?
Okay, yeah, this is right here. This is called the Great Highland Bagpipe. It's basically been unchanged other than some technology changes for a couple hundred years. It hasn't changed, close to 200 years, hasn't changed a whole lot. You have your drones here, which is the background noise that you hear. These are both called tenors, and then you have your bass drone here, which is the deepest tone you hear from your pipes. And a bag. Originally, they were all made of a cowhide or sheepskin hide. There are new bags out now made of Gore-Tex and other similar materials. This is a hide bag. This bag is actually from New Zealand. There's bagpipes all around the world. Bagpipers all around the world. So the bag is just an air reservoir. Hold air and regulate pressure while you're taking a breath. When you take a breath, you squeeze on the bag just to keep a steady pressure. And this is called your chanter, made out of wood, African blackwood, just like the bagpipes. So it's actually very thin wood, pretty fragile actually. And the reed is wood. It's a double cane reed. Very sensitive to moisture, temperature changes, which is why you'll see bagpipers say, I'm going to go get my pipes ready. And they take about 10 minutes of blowing usually to get them to steady in. And yeah, that's basically it. It's, like I said, everything constantly changes. So to get your bagpipes where all that sounds perfect, it's very, very difficult thing to achieve.
And the bagpipes were actually used for the military in Scotland with the Army. And
back in the early days, all the wars and battles they had in Scotland, it was considered an instrument of war. The clans all had their tartans and their tunes that they played and their pipers that led them into battle. In fact, the pipe major of our band, he has an old set of bagpipes from the 1880s. And supposedly, the mount on his, there's a little chip, and he said the guy he got them from said, yeah, that's from a bullet. And the pipers didn't always have the best jobs.
No. So the bagpipes originated not in Scotland, they originated...
But yeah, bagpipes have been over many different countries. I've heard Egypt, I've heard Asia. But yeah, they've been a basic instrument, and they've changed over the years. Originally, it was just you'd have one tube, and then you'd have your chanter, and you'd blow into it, and then they added a second drone and a third, and pitches changed and variations on how many notes you can play.
Oh, and so then, and in Ireland, it's a different kind of.
Yeah, when most people think of Irish bagpipes, although a lot of them do play this bagpipe, the Highland bagpipe, most people will think of the Uilleann bagpipe, which is played with instead of blowing into it with a blow stick, you hold it like you do. They keep the drones across like that, not over their shoulder, and they have a bellows that they blow into.
Oh.
So it's different, and they do have, you don't get the big robust sound like you do with the big bagpipe, but you have more octaves, so you have a wider range of music that they can play.
And now the tartan is your kilt.
Yeah, this tartan.
Whose tartan are you wearing?
This is the McLaughlin tartan here, and this is just a tartan that our band picked out. Actually, the band I'm playing in now is Border Cities Caledonian Pipe Band. We're a venture between Windsor and Detroit. The first band I was with that got this tartan was the Black Raven Pipe Band in the late 80s, Detroit area, local Detroit area pipe band. And there's been several bands that have folded and then merged. And then it became the Red Thistle Pipe Band, local Detroit area. And then after Red Thistle, we merged with an Ann Arbor band, and we became Detroit Caledonian Pipe Band.
Oh.
And now we're basically a merger with about 5 bands between Detroit Caledonian and a couple of bands in Ontario for Border Cities Pipe Band. And every one of those bands we've transferred this tartan just because we like most everyone really likes the look of this tartan.
And then you have sporin, which your sporin is just a...
Yep, the sporin here, just leather,
sporin,
and it just has some
yeah.
little bit of decoration on it. And the jacket I'm wearing, it's a dress Prince Charlie jacket, has the fancy buttons.
Very nice. So you actually teach the bagpipes too?
Yep, I spend a lot of time piping and band practice. We have practice at least once a week. Last night we had a Thursday night practice, and so we have Sunday practices. But yeah, I do a little bit of instruction. Have a few students right now. I'm kind of in between students, but yeah, I've taught kids starting at about 8 years old. Probably my top student. In fact, I'm going to see, he ended up getting a piping scholarship at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and he's actually graduating this May, so going to visit him for his commencements, which is a pretty neat deal.
And hopefully you'll be in the Shriners Highland Pipe Band.
Yep. Shriner Highlanders have a pipe band that's been around since not just 60s. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 1959.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of pipe bands in the areas. There was a Shriner Highlanders, which my dad over years back was involved with teaching a lot of them. There's a band in Birmingham. Which my dad's done a lot of instructing with bands over the years. Birmingham band, there is a Michigan Scottish pipe band. So there's always been a handful of bands in the Detroit area.
Well, excellent. Well, what are the types of music? You have different types you play, or?
Yes, there's the traditional, most people, there's the Scout and the Brave, that's the #1 recognized tune. That's a simple 4/4 march, it just has a basic beat that's easy to march to. There's competition marches that are, most of those are 2/4 marches. They're a little more complex with the fingering, although they're not played quickly. They're really complex and difficult fingering. And then you have your quick tempo tunes, jigs and hornpipes and reels, which are played quicker and are more of a dance type tune. And then you have your strathspeys, which are traditional Scottish music, where you have you'll see the dancers where they jump up and kind of slower and get a lot of lift, and you have basically tunes with a lot of lift is what's considered a strathspey.
Oh.
And then you have your pibroch, which is considered the classical music of the bagpipe. Very challenging to compete because you have to, they're long, they're usually at least 10 minutes, and the average one is about 10 minutes. So to get your pipe where it's sounding good and to play through for about 10 minutes and without many mistakes and having your pipe stay in tune is one of the challenging aspects of bagpipe competition.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and we're going to get to hear you play. So
Yes.
peace to you, and Bruce Burt will be right up.
Okay, I'm going to play a Scottish Stress Bay, which is one of the Highland dance tunes that's played for the sword dance. It's called Devil in the Kitchen, Scottish Stress Bay. Okay, next tune I'm going to play, it's a march called J.K. Cairns. It's written for a Canadian Army pipe band instructor. And then I'm going to play a jig called the Old Hag. Okay, now we're all ready for our drum and accompaniment. Scotland the Brave March. Ready? By the right. Quick. March.
It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going now. Paranoia strikes deep into your life. It will creep.